WMTV Madison. Now, from 15 News, depend on it. Pam Tauser, Mitch Hank, Elmer Childress with weather, and Craig Kashan sports. This is 15 News at 10.
Good evening. 36 hours after the murder of serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer, details of the killing are starting to filter through to authorities.
But those details are leading even more questions. Adam Schrager has more on today's developments.
What's going on behind the Columbia County prison walls remains a mystery. As prison guards left work, they remained tight-lipped about procedures followed when Jeff Dahmer was beaten to death.
There was some force used to create that kind of injuries that he had.
The Columbia County coroner does not have a murder weapon, but he knows what wasn't used.
Whatever caused this to Mr. Dahmer's head was a very strong force. It was not just the beating of it with a fist.
And now authorities believe there might be more than one suspect involved as well, as two other inmates were in the gym where Dahmer and Jesse Anderson were attacked.
They're, of course, interviewing inmates who are volunteering information, as well as those they believe may have been in the area and possible witnesses.
Meanwhile, Dahmer's parents are fighting over who gets his remains. His last will and testament calls for the serial killer to be cremated, but nothing else.
The will only merely said that his body should be disposed of by cremation and there should be no funeral service. It didn't say as to who gets the remains from the cremation. I suppose that would have been best had he done that, but he didn't.
For the next few days, though, Dahmer's remains will stay in Madison until the initial investigation is complete. In Madison, Adam Schrager, 15 News at 10.
The other victim in yesterday's attack remains in critical condition at the UW hospital with multiple head injuries. Jesse Anderson was convicted of murdering his wife back in 1992. The man accused of injuring Anderson and killing Dahmer was in prison for a similar crime. 25-year-old Christopher Scarver was serving time for first-degree intentional homicide after the 1990 shooting death of Stephen Lohman. The murder took place at the Wisconsin Conservation Corps in Milwaukee, and some people believe the incident was racially motivated. Scarver's attorney, however, says he does not think yesterday's attack on Dahmer and Anderson had anything to do with racial motivation.
The hotly debated GATT agreement on world trade passes its first crucial test. Today, the House approved the measure by a vote of 288 to 146. Supporters say the agreement opens up markets for American products all over the world. Opponents say it will drive down American wages.
No EPA, no OSHA, no workman comp, no unemployment comp, no bank regulations, no security regulations, no minimum wage, no pension law, no labor law.
I believe that in world trade, you have to take the offensive. And when it comes to creating jobs in a global economy, a nation can't sit there and contemplate its navel.
The real fight over GATT will come in the Senate, where a vote is scheduled for Thursday. Tom Foley effectively ended his 30-year career in the House of Representatives today. The 65-year-old Speaker of the House's term isn't officially over until January, but he got a send-off as he presided over today's session dealing with GATT. Foley lost his seat in Washington State by 12,000 votes. He says he's leaving Congress with a sense of satisfaction and gratitude. Preparing for retirement can be expensive.
In fact, baby boomers will literally need to be millionaires to retire at 65 and live comfortably. But there are ways, believe it or not, to get started now in saving for your golden years. Tony Thomas has tonight's Check Your Figures report.
Brad and Fran Zog have been waiting for this for years. Fran's pregnant, the baby due in January. It's a time of great joy and great stress.
We see how much college tuition's gonna cost 20 years from now and know that we have to have a lot put away just for that.
But they've planned well, both for the baby and retirement. In fact, they've done exactly what we all should do.
They keep saving at the pace that they're at now, even without figuring in increases in savings as they make more and more, that they'll have enough to be financially independent at age 65.
It's something we all could do. We just procrastinate.
It's fairly easy if you start in your 30s. If you start in your 50s, it's much tougher.
In fact, if you save $2,000 a year from age 25 to age 35 and then stop, you'll still save 70% more than if you save the same $2,000 a year from age 35 to 65. The interest adds up.
The earlier you start, the more successful you're going to be, because just the passage of time makes people successful in the investment area.
Making the decision to start saving retirement money can be harder than actually doing it.
They just wait too long. I think that's the most common mistake is they just wait way too long.
When you actually make the commitment to save, how much should you set aside? Here are good rules of thumb. If you're 25, you'll need to put away 8% of your gross income and try to put 80% of that in stocks. If you're 35, sock away 12% and put 70% in stocks. And if you're 45 and just starting a retirement plan, put 20% away with 60% in stocks, because you can't risk losing money if the value drops.
If a person can save about 10 to 15% of their income, they'll never have any financial worries in their lifetime.
But if you're saving that much, you have to live on less now. Anderson suggests making do on 3/4 of what you make.
Everybody can live at a lower standard of living that they are now. But if you want to maintain your same standard of living, you need to shoot for a future goal that's about 75% of your current working income.
Brad and Fran are doing it.
Rather than guessing how much we should be saving, we decided to try to sit down and have a plan done and figure how much is the minimum we should be doing.
Like many people, the Zogs are taking advantage of a 401k plan. Anderson and Branson emphasize that, along with other employee programs, are key to any good plan. In Madison, Tony Thomas, 15 News at 10.
Investing for your retirement isn't risk-free either. Tomorrow night, we'll talk to one woman who lost a chunk of her retirement nest egg on a bad deal.
Other news, former Vice President Dan Quayle is hospitalized.
Still to come, his prognosis after suffering a blood clot in the lung.
Looks like a little warm air heading through the Central Plains, and I think we'll get that probably by tomorrow and the next day. And I'll have the complete forecast for you in just a few minutes.
"15 News is brought to you by American Family Insurance.
The U.S. Supreme Court is hearing arguments on whether term limits are constitutional.
While the justices rule on an Arkansas term limits law, politicians jockey for position on the term limits issue. Incoming Republican House leaders have promised to vote on a term limits constitutional amendment within 100 days of the new Congress, but they did not promise that term limits would pass. Insiders say term limits are doomed in the next Congress. One unnamed Republican House member said asking an incumbent to vote for term limits is like asking a chicken to vote for Colonel Sanders.
Doctors are very optimistic about former Vice President Dan Quayle's medical condition. Indianapolis hospital officials say the former vice president is progressing nicely after being treated for a blood clot in his lung. Doctors are using blood thinners to dissolve the clot. Quayle will spend the next week in the hospital, but doctors expect him to recover completely. The prognosis is also good for Wisconsin First Lady Sue Ann Thompson. She is recuperating after surgery to remove a small cancerous breast tumor. Doctors discovered the tumor 3 weeks ago after a mammogram. They say with mammograms and early detection, the news is frequently good for successful treatment.
At least 80% of the biopsies are going to show benign findings. The patient has certain...
In most cases, if there is an abnormal spot on the mammogram and it is cancer...
In this day and age, the preferred treatment for early breast cancer, that is small lesions that are localized to the breast, is using the lumpectomy surgery procedure. That removes the tumor and a rim of tissue just around the tumor. It does not remove the breast.
Doctors advise women 50 and over to have a mammogram annually. Mrs. Thompson is 53. She will now undergo 6 weeks of radiation therapy.
Researchers say there is a new way to identify breast cancer without undergoing a painful biopsy. UCLA scientists say a radioactive tracer injection has been 90% effective in identifying malignancies. The techniques are used after a suspicious mammogram. Experts say the tracer could save millions of dollars in healthcare costs and exposes the patient to about the same amount of radiation as a cross-country airplane trip. Jerry Rubin, who symbolized the rebellious movement of the 60s, has died. 2 weeks ago, Rubin was hit by a car as he crossed the street. 25 years ago, Rubin led the Youth International Party called the Yippies, a group of radicals protesting against the Vietnam War and the U.S. government. At the 1968 Democratic Convention, Rubin led the bloody demonstrations that led to his arrest as part of the Chicago 7. He later became a stockbroker on Wall Street. He was 56 years old.
Still to come in this newscast, was the 1994 deer hunting season a success?
DNR officials say it could have been better. Stay with us.
And later in sports, we'll see if the women's basketball team can start off the season 3-0.
A beauty of a day.
Not well with the wind down. It felt so much better than yesterday.
It feels like the season.
You're right.
You go out shopping and you wear a coat and you feel like it's the holiday season.
Everybody kept seeing, we live in Wisconsin. It's got to get cold. Well, actually, it's going to get warmer the next few days. We only had 32 today for the high. Haven't gone down all that much so far tonight. Look at that. It says flurries. Now, I can't find any on the radar, but if the Weather Service says they see flurries out of the airport, why, we'll take their word for it. 27 degrees, but I don't think you have to get your snowplow out still. West wind at 9, humidity at 78%, and the barometer 30.11 and holding steady right now. Highs today were in the low 30s here in the south. We had 32, Milwaukee had 34, but then it drops off rapidly as you see Eau Claire with 25, same as up at Superior. So all up in that section had just a little break in the clouds from time to time today, but really not enough sunshine to warm things up. A new storm moving into the northwest now is going to be bringing more snow and rain. So far it doesn't show that it's the big storm like the one we just had recently. The remains of it now are still going through the Gulf Coast as well as up the east. It's dumping a lot of precipitation, especially from Louisiana through Alabama and Mississippi, mainly because it's been pulling up a lot of moisture out of the Gulf and then dumping it right on those southern cities, Apalachicola, Florida, as well as up into Mobile, Alabama, all in through there. They're having quite a bit of rain. Some in the west is snow up in portions of Idaho and Montana, and they've had some 70-mile-an-hour winds up there, too. So it's another real wind maker, looks like. We had the 32, 54 at Boston today, and, of course, it's very cool down through the south. L.A., though, still warm with some of those Santa Ana winds coming around that big high pressure out there, so they were in the 70s this afternoon. Tomorrow it's going to get a little warmer through the plains. Should be in the 50s all up through there. Actually, what's happening, a lot of this is because they're getting some downflow off of the Rockies out there. That warms the air up considerably. That eventually will move up our way, so we should be a little warmer tomorrow. And then actually by Thursday, we should be even warmer than that. Still dry in the southeast for tomorrow as that storm should move away. Tonight, we may have a little flurry out there, but don't get all excited about it. We should become partly cloudy with the overnight low dropping to about 20 and the winds continuing west at around 5 to 10. Then tomorrow, becoming mostly cloudy again. It won't last all that long with any clearing skies. Tomorrow's high should be about 39, and then tomorrow night staying rather mild compared to what we've been having. Overnight low of around 30, and then we should be dry for Thursday and Friday and getting up to the 40s again. And Saturday should be wet, possibly, and it should be rain this time. It could change to snow then by Sunday. So it looks like we're going to be very scant on snow for our contest, but we've had 3/10 so far.
All right.
3/10 of an inch. Well, yeah,
Not much. Don't get your skis out yet.
No, I
I'd
won't.
say not before Friday or Sunday anyway.
The gun deer season is over, and the numbers of total deer are being calculated.
And the numbers are lower than the Department of Natural Resources officials say they should be.
Hunters came up around 16,000 deer short of the DNR's quota, which could cause some problems for Madison area residents in the future.
We can issue all the permits in the world, and if they don't have access to private land, we're not going to reach our goal, and the herds could continue to build, which has ramifications for agriculture and the automobile insurance industry.
Matthews says the excess herd out there is comparable to the problem in the mid-1980s, where an extended season and extra permits attempted to lower the state's number of deer.
Well, do you have your lotto fever yet?
I don't have it yet. Don't have a ticket either. Still to come, tomorrow's giant jackpot stirs up a passion for Powerball.
15 News is brought to you in part by GI Office Technologies. Closed captioning for 15 News is brought to you by American. Amazing place, amazing prices.
Paper processing accounts for 76,000 Wisconsin jobs.
Its economic impact on the state's economy adds up to nearly $3.7 billion. As we move towards the 21st century, paper processing in Wisconsin is changing with the help of a commonly found fungus. Steve Rudin has more in tonight's Earth Watch.
I'm going to try and take 4.5 million tons of paper were produced in the state of Wisconsin last year alone. Of that amount, most of the paper was produced conventionally, which is extremely inefficient. In an effort to cut production costs, an industry-funded experiment at the USDA Madison is using fungus to make paper. You heard correctly. There is a humongous fungus among us, and paper processing technology is changing because of it.
Mechanical pulping process is very energy intensive because simply you are grinding up the wood chips and turning it into paper.
In fact, researchers have found that the wood softening process using fungi reduces energy costs by up to 30% while maintaining paper quality. If the process is accepted by industry, paper manufacturers could save thousands of dollars each year. The process begins when hundreds of fungi samples are stored on auger slants. Plugs of these samples are then placed on petri dishes where they are later cut and used as growth specimens.
The fungus that we cut from our petri plate has been inoculated in this flask containing growth medium. In 2 weeks, this fungus will cover the bottom of the plate and look something like this. Now this organism will be ready for use in our experiments.
Take this fungus and grind it up and put in the wood chips, and it takes about 2 weeks to soften up the wood chip.
After the incubation period, the chips are covered with fungus. Eventually drying out, the chips will end up in piles where they will be bagged for future use in paper processing. In Madison, Steve Rudin, 15 News at 10.
Research on the wood softening fungus is expected to be completed within the next 3 years.
A gray cloud hovered over the financial markets today. No fungus that we know of. A stronger than expected jump in consumer confidence initially hurt both stocks and bonds. At the closing bell, the Dow Jones Industrials came back from a 21-point loss, closing down just 1.01 at 3738.55. One very lucky person could be $95 million richer tomorrow. Wednesday's Powerball lottery jackpot is the second largest ever. Ticket buyers we talked with at Woodman's Food Market hope their ticket will give them the good life.
I'm going to win. If you go in with a positive attitude, you'll win. And I'm going to win.
I think I'd take care of my family, make sure everybody was taken care of, and I'd have one heck of a party.
First of all, I'd pay off a bunch of bills, and then I think I'd consider retirement in a big hurry.
Wow, just think. Powerball tickets are selling at almost $1,400 a minute.
Pay off a few bills and consider retirement in a big hurry. Yes.
Not time to turn in your resignation yet.
Yeah. Still ahead in sports, they're getting ready for the state battle on the hardwood between the UW Green Bay and the Badgers.
Plus, Craig has the debut of Badger Ball.
Just basketball everywhere tonight, huh?
Yeah, we're right into the heart of it, aren't we?
Good.
Yes, we are.
Bring it on.
Yeah, we've got college ball, high school ball, some pro stuff. Good matchups.
Pickup game later.
We could do that. New head coach Jane Albright Dieterle calls it Badger Ball, a catchy nickname for her UW women's basketball team. Tonight, the new look debuts at home against Western Illinois, and Coach A puts her last word in before the tip-off tonight. Badgers start slow, but pick it up. Camille Williams hits the jumper for Wisconsin on the baseline. Deidre LaFrance answers with the nice move on the other end. And the Badgers lead by only 6 at the break, but Bucky gets the rhythm going in the second half, going on a 20-0 run. Keisha Anderson led the way with 18 points, finds Sharon Johnson open. And Keisha finishes off a 79-52 win.
As big as we were able to win, and that we were able to in the second half come out and really execute what we wanted to. I think offensively we show we've got a lot of balance, and I think we held the people on their team that I think we did a nice job of keeping them out of the game.
Again, the Badgers win that one 79-52. Tomorrow night, the Fieldhouse will be rocking again for the state battle between UW Green Bay and the Badgers. This game always provides some controversy, such as should the game even be played, because the Badgers feel it's a no-win situation. Does UW Green Bay feel they get enough respect, win or lose? And is this game even considered a state rivalry like the Marquette game?
Well, to me, it's not a big rivalry. I mean, it's not just another game, but it's a game that we want to win. But, you know, a lot of people look at it as a in-state rivalry, being that they're from Green Bay and we're from Madison. A lot of media and a lot of fans like to hype it up like that. If that's going to put fans in the seats, then so be it.
Makes for a pretty good TV game, too. The Phoenix and the Badgers live here at Channel 15 tomorrow night, beginning at 7 o'clock. Indiana and Notre Dame tonight. We pick it up late in the second half. Ryan Hoover's three puts Notre Dame up 73-70, but Brian Evans drives to the bucket to give IU a 1-point lead. This one goes to overtime. The Irish would have the last word, however, as this give and go helps them to the 1-point victory, 80-79 in OT. Indiana starts out 1-3. Well, Minnesota plays host to Sacramento State. Bashawn Leonard making the NBA-type moves, getting ready for the Milwaukee Bucks next year. And he leads all scorers with 28 points. The Gophers start out now 4-0 on the season, winning this one easily, 102-84. Elsewhere, the Big Ten, Iowa tops Drake, no problem, 103-68. NCAA, number 2, North Carolina, a winner. Duke trails at the half to UConn. Florida tops Boston College. It's number 11, Maryland, with a victory. Number 21, Wake Forest. Number 22, Syracuse, also come away with victories. The young Bucks have struggled a bit as of late, and we're hoping to get some relief from the Suns tonight without Charles Barkley. Turns out an injury doesn't keep him out of the lineup, so the Bucks play catch-up from the word go. Vin Baker, though, doing all he can. The alley-oop leads the Bucks with 23 points. No sore stomach for Sir Charles tonight. He gets the steal and goes the other way for the easy 2. And Dan Marley leads the Suns in scoring, putting this one away for Phoenix. He also had 23 points. The Suns topped the Bucks 123-106. Boys high school basketball from Milwaukee. Madison East visits Milwaukee, Washington. Tight game throughout East. Jason Gavin leads all scorers. Pretty move here with 18 points. Washington will hold on, though, and top Madison East 44-40.